So welcome everybody. Michael Goldberg. I'm our executive director of the Veale Institute and a faculty member at Weatherhead. And it's great to have Steve McHale joining us for our speakers here. We were joking before. Britton has us on a very, when she took over helping us plan these things, like if it was up to me, I'd be like, oh, Steve, I'll come tomorrow. And we have a very planned schedule. So we were when we last emailed about this, I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It was July and we put this on the calendar. And life's busy, so I'm so glad we did this and got on your calendar. I know you're actively running a company and traveling, so we're so thrilled to have you. Our speaker series are always moderated by students. So Apeksha, who's a member of our Veale Snyder Fellows program and computer science student, and actually will be heading to Taiwan this summer for a new pilot internship with Albisa, with the university there, working kind of with their ThinkBox equivalent in Taiwan. So we'll be together. So Apeksha will be moderating the discussion. So obviously if you're here in person, about halfway through, she'll open up discussions. And if you're online watching on Zoom or LinkedIn, just let us know in the Zoom chat that you want a question, or if you're on LinkedIn, just put it in the comment and then we'll go from there. So Steve, welcome. Apeksha, over to you.
Yeah, we would love to have you introduce yourself, talk about, I have some highlights of your career. It's very successful, but maybe your connection to Cleveland, who you are, things that you've been up to, what you're up to now.
Great. Yeah,
So
thanks for inviting me.
these are some
really
options. It is really important to tackle this issue. As I said, even if it's just a fender bender, it can make you miserable for years.
From my perspective, I get to learn as well.
So worth pursuing. So I will take questions now. This is a book if you're looking for advice about aging with a plan. And
Interesting.
otherwise, I will take questions
Yeah,
about anything.
and we were living in a small ranch house in New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia on the other side of the country. And there's 5 children that live in this ranch house, and we're 5 kids in 6 years. To say the Irish twins. And then when 2 of us were born in Philadelphia, we were born in Jersey. We were all living in the house.
Who's this?
It's a fun fact about the McHale family. Anyway, we moved here when I was 9. I moved my parents here with me 6 months ago. And so we moved into Chagrin Falls, neighbor Chagrin Falls, and went to school, went to local high school here, went to Kenston, and then went to Bowling Green State University, and Falcons, another Falcon, Mike's Falcon, and yeah, so it just, and then started all my companies here in Cleveland.
Okay.
That's my intro.
Nice. And do you just want to talk about what you're up to right now?
Yeah,
And
want to start with that?
We'll go through the timeline of how you decided to get your information science degree, right? And things like that, starting from college, but just to give them some context of what you do.
Okay, that's great. So the what I'm doing right now actually spun out of a nonprofit lab that I founded with 2 other individuals called Unify Labs. And Unify Labs is an economic impact lab that we designed to study systems inside the economy that were driving inequality. So we wanted to understand what was really limiting people's ability to get into a prosperous life and have a livable wage job and contribute inside of our economy. So we simulation modelers. Barb Snyder was on our board, by the way, the past president here. We got a pretty nice board at the lab right now. And so we had simulation modelers, data scientists, social scientists, and significant amount of economics. So we had the Federal Reserve economists, computational economists that came in from me. He's now a Case professor here. We shared him with Case. So we brought him in as a postdoc. And then we also had, so we worked closely with Case with our lab all the way along the way. And then we also, had another economist that's a professor here that we attracted from Harvard, came in over here. That lab, we really studied the bifurcation between GDP and median household income, and we I started to identify processes and systems inside the economy that we felt were driving the breach and what we call the jaws of the snake or the inequality, and started to study those things and then build designs around what we did differently. And Graici is actually the spin out of that work. So that's what Graici comes from, what I'm going to tell you about in just a second. So Graici is we identified that one of the biggest issues associated with people that were under-resourced and underrepresented in our economy was access to resources and a network. A lot of people in this room probably have networks, and that's how we got into this room. And you'll see others that are have been in the lower earning deciles, the bottom two deciles, talking in economic terms. I know there's a few economists in here. And it was Mark Vitruvi's group that we shared resources with. So, and I know Mark was great, really, really brilliant. And so we looked at it and said, well, we don't, what can we do? And we're all technology and data, so we were coming in and saying, we're coming to use technology to solve these problems in the lab. We weren't gonna, try to build social service organizations or nonprofits and things like that. We said, if we're not gonna build something that's gonna super scale to solve a major problem, we're not gonna do it at all. So we're only interested in going big with ideas and not science projects. So we spun Graici out 3 years ago, and we've been developing a technology since then. I'll pause for a minute. Is this what you wanted to cover? Okay. So Graici is, here's what we identified, that the issue for an individual that's been in an under-resourced environment, and especially generationally, meaning over and over again, that one of the things that happens is a key quality that humans have that is really important to us to thrive in the world is agency. And feeling like you have some control over the world and the systems and the environments around you can sometimes be really blunted hard if you feel like the systems control you. So our vision was get the power in the hands of individuals so they feel that they can control the system and navigate the system instead of the system navigating them. So the center postulate of our design is the data wallet, that we build the first comprehensive, complete digital DNA of a person. So all of their data would be organized around the person, giving them sovereign control of that data. So it's your data. It's not Cleveland Clinic's data. It's not Case's data. It's that every single organization that's structured itself to manage the data for the people they interface with. We want that data to now be on the wallet of the individual so that they can use that data to navigate the system again instead of the system navigating them. There's other groups here, HAT, and things that have really worked on these things. But our model was, let's go find the economic energy so that we can figure out how to go in and get into the market and survive and thrive and super scale instead of just trying to come up with the technology idea and hoping people would adopt it, because that has not happened. If you don't come up with a model that literally transforms the economics and taps into the economic energy that's right now being deployed, it's not going to scale and it won't be successful. So part of it is assetization of the data, meaning that if you're going to build your wallet, you're getting paid. We're going to cut you in, right? So Google, Facebook, all these guys make trillions on everybody's data. You get nothing other than social media. You get advertising and things like that. Not anymore. We're changing that. So now, if your data is being leveraged under your volition, you're getting paid. So it's now, we believe this data, and as AI starts to take out more and more jobs, we have to find a way to value people differently in the economy, and instead of just giving them UBI, giving people UBI. One of their major assets is their data, so they should get compensated for their data if it's being leveraged in any way, and they should have authority over that data. So there's environmental things that came in, and we saw them coming, and they came in, and we adapted to that. And all 5 of my organizations, we've done a pivot. So if you're in the entrepreneurial space and someone says, do they used to frown upon that? When I invest as a venture capital or as early stage, I'll ask the entrepreneur then I'll say, when did you do your first pivot and tell me about it?
Mhm.
So, we look for entrepreneurs that are listening to the ground, looking for externalities and ready to shift, not knee jerk, don't keep thrashing and going back and forth, but absorb it all and make sure you pivot. So then with Graici, we did some pivot. We did a pivot as well. So we focused on workforce initially, and we could see that there was other environmental areas that were having a big impact, and it was healthcare and it was education. So we were looking at those two sectors and we said, we need to support these people in coming through those channels versus, trying to, just come at it from a workforce perspective and try to match them to the right job. And so we backed up, hit that reset button 2 years ago, and we went in with a full AI driven. So Graici is a new category of artificial intelligence. It's an agentic category, so we're an agent-based artificial intelligence. We use the large language models as a commodity. So we have 4 different large language models we work with: OpenAI, Anthropic, use Bedrock, and Mistral out of France for data and training. So we use all 4 of those. And then we built our own technology called Conclave and a fusion engine that's, bringing all the data together as it relates to the resources people need that they would get access to, and then agentifying it. So our technology not just gives you advice, but as Graici's talking to you and having a conversation with you. If you say you need a resource like Medicaid or child care, we automate that whole process from their wallet. So then once again, that's the data wallet, the life wallet that's critical to this. And then we can, we're a little aggressive, but our SimBots basically crawl across sites, fill it all out, and then authenticate it with the person. So we've shown this to the state of Ohio and to the top brass there. We said, we're not selling you anything. We just want to make sure you know what we're doing above board. So normally it would take 4 hours with a case manager. Graici did it in 17 seconds live on their site. They didn't know. And so people were getting it. And of course the fear was fraud and, all this kind of thing came up, and it was pretty powerful. But they realized, and they stepped back and said, well, we know what's coming. So they're starting to recognize they need to embrace this kind of thing. And it's really powerful on a single ID. So the organizations, to include the government, would love to get to a unified ID so that it makes their resources more available to the state citizens, as an example. So they're really, positive around this move. And then other organizations that are trying to leverage and get to the resources for people with CBOs, if you're familiar with that term, community-based organizations, automating those resources as well, like food bank, like Centers for Family and Children. I'm involved with that group on the board of that nonprofit as well. They need, identifying those kinds of resources so the person can get their needs met. And then we store all that in their digital wallet, in their life wallet, so that now you've got so much information that person does, it's really valuable. So for example, de-identified, protecting the person, pharma would want to pay them for access to that data, right? And, obviously for research, for clinical trials, for those kinds of things. So there's so much utility in that data. We want to make sure we put it in the power of the hands of the person, again, versus, having it scattered all over the universe and trying to cobble that together. It's also a system level failure too within the economy that exists, which is, we build HIEs, health information exchanges and things like that, and then there's a lot of bureaucracy between them, and then they're jamming the data up, and it gets political, and it gets all that. Say, not anymore. There's one decision maker, and you're looking at that person, and it's holding it in their phone, they're going, you got to come to them now to deal with the data. Don't worry about interlocking between all of you and all those clunky asynchronous models to exchange data. Come one place for the data. So that's what Graici does. It's a personal assistant. That's the way it comes in. Our channels, we come through our healthcare plans. So right now we're focused on the Medicaid plans. There's 84 million people on Medicaid right now. Numbers coming down because of the unwinding. And there's a lot of restrictions coming in to include work requirements, but we have job matching and job applications as well. So we have all the counter forces around that to say those that are really eligible for those kinds of resources that they get. Because to get people to move into a better income bracket into prosperity, you've got to make sure they have the resources to get out of the situation they're in. That's the summary.
So just to understand, when you're deploying something like this, who are you engaged with, whether it be like on a state or organization level? Are you engaged with to deploy something like this and give this resource to people?
So from a support standpoint at the state level, we just, again, we're not selling the state anything. We deal with the director levels that report up to the governor just to say, look, we're here. We're not trying to hide the ball. We're not trying to do anything nefarious. As it relates to market access, which I think is maybe where your question is coming from, we deploy through large Medicaid health plans, through F2HCs, with the centers one, neighborhood family practice one. Then they, because they're our safety net, there's 30.5 million people that are seen by the F2HCs in our country every year. And so they're our safety net. So F2HCs, hospital systems like the Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals and things like that. And so those are our channels per se. And then with the Cures Act, so anybody here know what the Cures Act is? All right, wonderful. All right, we get a cookie. The Cures Act, I think it was late 2023, mandates that the health systems and the plans provide electronic access to your medical records that you can request and store on your own, pull from those systems. And so we're leveraging the Cures Act and coming through what's called Smart on Fire APIs, if you've seen anything on that, but it was originally designed for the standard out of the ONC. And essentially those endpoints have lit up and they're lighting up all across the country, so that if Steve says, I want my data, tells Graici, I want my data, we go get it. And then we also have a relationship with Plaid where we're integrated. So we come into that, help them with financial banking data so we can deposit the earnings that they make as it relates from being on the network, being part of Graici. So the channels are, and then what's coming at us though unexpectedly is some government organizations are interested in us working with their big integrators to get Graici included in the functionality. We'll see if that plays out. So there's multiple channels, and employers will become one at some point. We're not pursuing them right now, and we're not pursuing, if you're familiar with Medicare, we're in Medicaid now, but Medicare, there's channels coming through from what's called MA, or Medicare Advantage. Those are the channels. Long-winded answer,
Okay.
but it's complicated a little bit.
So hopefully that gives you guys some perspective on what he's up to right now. Just to give you guys some more context, this whole kind of like timeline and career. He had some early success with US Connect, which is an international systems integration company, which was later acquired. Everstream in 1999, which was sold to Concurrent in 2005, that was dealing in broadband and content analytics. Exploris was formed in 2009 in collaboration with Cleveland Clinic. That was later acquired by IBM. They created one of the largest clinical databases in the world. Unify Labs, which he talked about briefly, which spun off of Unify Work, which is a nonprofit tech innovation center focused on powering inclusive property. So that's just to give you guys kind of a career timeline of like what he's up to. He's also engaged in community work, like things with Cleveland Clinic, Cleveland Food Bank, Cleveland Orchestra, serving as like a board member, yes, and all these things. But a lot of people here are in college and in their early careers, so I think we just want to bring it like all the way back, get some relation going on there, and talk about maybe some of your initial inclinations to getting into being in the tech space. What originally drew you to tech during your time in college? And I think this is a really important question because a lot of us are in a time now where we're able to hop on this major shift in technological resources and advancements. So during your time, what drew you to getting into that field?
That's a good question. Don't get asked that question much. when I went to college, I was really wanted to be a music major, and I was percussionist. So I was I loved playing music, and but then when I got there, the other drummers that were there would mop the floor. So I'm like, and I also saw how they lived. So I was like, they were going to starve. I was really going to starve. So I stayed involved in music, and I have a band and all that. But I switched to tech, engineering, management information systems, and psychology as an undergrad. So I was really interested in how technology was changing human behavior, how it can intersect. And this is like 100 years ago. So it was like IBM mainframes. I was learning the code on that. So I learned in some real old languages like COBOL and assembler, Fortran. Some of that remnants are around, but assembler was my favorite because we were writing elements of operating systems. So it was pretty neat. And then, so I was just fascinated with all that. And I did a project where it was networking IBM PCs with 300 baud modems. They had just come out for the AFL-CIO lettuce picker union in California. And I got a D on it. So didn't think much about that idea. And the local area networks hadn't evolved yet. And so I learned that it was a little early. In my career, I found sometimes I'm early. And so I have to watch that. But yeah, that was college. And, when I got out of college, I started my first company. My parents let me live at home because I was broke. And so I lived at home. And then my dad made a small investment, and the deal was I had to pay him 5 times back what he put in, and I did. So, and that helped me get that first company going. And since then, it was, just one company after another. In between, I have 2 daughters, and so I took a year or something off when we had, after I sold my company, when I had our first daughter, and then I took 4 years off after we had our second daughter, or 4.5 years. So I would take these breaks and it would recharge my batteries, and then I would just, I'd be the room mom and stuff, and with the kids, and it was really a blessing to be able to do something like that. So take those breaks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I just wanted to ask if you could just give a sentence of what US Connect was, because my question is after you being a serial entrepreneur, a lot of your companies that came after that kind of revolved in the intersection of tech and impact or healthcare, and just how did you find yourself shifting into that intersection from something like US Connect? Could you just explain what US Connect was and then how you got into that?
Yeah, actually I was one of the founding members of this US Connect network building. I was the CEO of it for a couple of years. I don't think I put that in there, but US Connect was germinated out of the fact that we were regional, smaller integrators implementing networks and software technology. And we wanted to compete with the really big integrators. And we said, well, let's go build a network. And so we got 13 together initially that we founded. And then we had, I don't know how many, we had 60 or 70. And then we launched GeoConnect, and we bought in Canada and Europe. So we were really, really rolling with this network. And it was an inverted model, really. The members were running this, they were running the network. And we took on really big projects then. We took on, Ernst & Young's Lotus Notes deployment across the whole nation. And, we were the anchor here in Ohio that won that deal. So a lot of us compete with the really big integrators, Accenture, well, they were called something different, but others that were out there. So again, the germination of that idea was we wanted to scale, and then we wanted to scale a network that would exit, and then that network did get acquired by a public company. And but we had options, so I ended up selling my local organization or business to another company because I loved the leadership team and I knew I could learn from So I was always looking for mentors, and I wasn't seeing it in the roll-up model, but I saw it in some leadership of another organization that wanted to acquire my company. So that was US Connect.
Okay, and then from US Connect, how are you now getting into the space, being at this intersection of tech and impact, healthcare, human-centered?
Human-centered, yeah. So, I mean, one of my mentors was the company that bought us was an office products company, but it was led by a gentleman who had led American Hospital Supply early on and was the youngest senior VP of American Hospital Supply. And he's a brilliant individual, Riley Lockridge. And he was all about human development and growth. And so he really focused on the values, and the office products needed to get connected. So he wanted to buy my networking company. And so it was a huge learning and growth opportunity for me to be under his mentorship. They had Xerox leadership there too. So it was really quite an exceptional organization. I know we don't think much about copiers and things like that as being that high tech, but it was a big moment for them to get ready to be in the connected space. And so but his mentorship and to me was critical to get to where we are now. So your question, I don't think I would have been able to achieve and build the companies had I not really been under his mentorship. And so that was a key decision for me to make, to say, instead of selling, and I would have gotten more of a premium by selling in the rolled up network. But instead I said, no, I want to go over here and work with this gentleman for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a key access point for me.
Okay. So now I kind of want to go into Explorers and your collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic. How did that come to be? I feel like this is kind of a highlight startup journey, getting acquired by IBM and all. Could you just talk about more of your experience and kind of the build up to that all the way to its acquisition, things that were fun during that process, things like that?
Sure, happy to. I think I'm going to put this out there as almost advice, or I'm going to put it out as experience, but then for the team, the group to think about here, that so in all of my situations, I look for mentorship and I look for building connections that I can learn from and understand where the opportunity is. So that's taking initiative and independence and initiative and going, I want to go figure this out, right? So that's, I've made efforts and we've had a lot of discussions, and I get pulled into some things around, like with the clinic or different areas, about let's build an environment that invites entrepreneurs in and makes sure that we have the infrastructure in place. And everybody's working on that, so I'm not saying it is or isn't, but don't count on that being there. So that if you have an idea, then you got to figure out what to do. So I was the origin of it of Explorers was I was having a diagnostic procedure done, and I was talking to my physician afterwards, and the machine printed out this piece of paper, and he tore it off. And I said, "What are you going to do with that?" He threw it in this big fat folder, this folder. And I was like, and it's, and I had some knowledge and experience on telecom and how fast they were moving and all that. And it felt like, well, healthcare is going to have to move fast to digitize all this data and all those things. So I started just contacting people randomly around the Cleveland Clinic and just kept poking around and getting meetings and just kind of being a nuisance, until finally I found somebody there that was, said, hey, okay, Chris Coburn, who's a friend of mine, said, all right, we'll talk to you. He's now the head of innovations and intellectual property at Mass General Brigham. And he said, all right, so he helped me navigate around. He goes, well, there's this doctor over here, Dr. Veale Jane, who's now a dear friend of mine, but at the time I just hadn't met him. And he goes, go over and talk to this guy. And so I spent a little time with him, and he showed me an application that his team had put together. It's just really basic on using Microsoft SQL to be able to search data from their big data warehouse Clarity, which was epic, more quickly pull the data and do that. But it was just in a narrow band, but it was the idea. And what we really wanted was, was the Cleveland Clinic brand, right, was really important. I knew that, so the first lesson there is that you go poke around, you go make some connections, and just keep at it until you get to somebody that's going to really connect you and get you involved with the right person or organization office. So I started working with Neil. We started putting a deal together and said, we're the money and the jockeys, because I'd sold a prior company. We're going to fund this thing. We're going to grant the Cleveland Clinic option stock in this whole deal that they didn't have to pay for. So we're like, we're going to grant stock in this, and we'll fund it. And then we want to license that and everything associated around that. But we knew we had to rebuild it, so it wouldn't super scale. So we cut that deal, and we went back into we were one of the first users of Hadoop, which was a column store, high scale, model. We're using HBase with it, and we built really what is the precursor to what you see in Amazon Cloud and all those things. We built that in 2009, 2010. So we had our own data center. We stood all this, stacked up all the CPUs, and it was barely wired together. It was pretty rickety, right? But we could basically process hundreds of millions of analytics in a 3 or 4 hour window in the middle of the night, because the ACA was showing up, and we had great mentors on our board, and we could see that we needed to move fast to meet the needs of the emerging Accountable Care Act and all the requirements that were coming at the provider. So it was perfect timing, which is, unfortunately, the disruption that's going on right now is also a tailwind for Graici. So just, we look for those externalities, and then we shift or pivot when we're paying attention. So that's, I don't know if that got to where we were, but essentially ran around the clinic, found some people, got them engaged, came in, pitched them. They had tier 1 VCs in the room, and they're like, what do you know about healthcare? And we said, nothing. How are you doing right now? We know a lot about banking and telecom. They're 10 years ahead of healthcare. So, we'll go figure this out together.
Okay, and then
One more question, and then we'll open it up.
one more question.
I know.
Okay, let me do a scroll. Hold on. Okay, I'll make this one a little bit broader. You've obviously had a lot of success throughout the companies that you've built. You've hit massive success in being acquired by IBM, world's largest clinical database, and Exploris. So as you're continuing your work now, I just wanted to maybe bring it back to like personal values, or just how you're conducting yourself, and how you see philanthropy or like values-based leadership showing up in your work.
Okay, that's a great question too. I wasn't. Yeah, she didn't tee me up.
I'm coming on your toes.
Yeah, which I appreciate. So I think I've always been. I feel like I'm values driven, and which was really interesting about my mentor that I mentioned as well. He was, and I think that was one of the things that connected us. And so my style, and I'm sure everybody said, it's not uncommon here. I'm a servant leadership based. That's my style, to be servant leadership. So I believe in, if you drew an art chart, I'm on the bottom holding others up. So my job is to really, serve people, to see them become the best they can be, period. That's our mission. And it's our journey, right? So, that's how it drives the quality of life and contribution back to the world. So the servant leadership is really important to me, and even to the point to where, I want to see, whoever I lead and serve past me, right? I'm like, I'll draft off you, right? So then it's like it's a whole process that you really want to see people become very successful and contribute back as well. And then, my core values are accountability, empowerment, and ethics. So I live under those values, and we adopt something of that permutation with each one of my companies. It says this would be our core values. So we, ask ourselves to, from an ethics standpoint, pause, think about what you're doing, and do what you know to be right. And if you're not, you find out that you weren't, then be open to that feedback. So you've got to really be open to it. And then empowerment is, look, and just here, make decisions. We at Explorers, we call them the Blue Bloods in Boston, but they were our competitors, and they had a 2-year jump on us. And we empowered our team. We were half their size, and we doubled their data. We passed them like they're standing still. They were just like, wow, where'd you guys come from? Because we started acquiring data super fast. We had an empowered team that was making decisions. We make a mistake, it's great. Come back to you, brush you off, put a helmet on, put you back in the huddle. So it's like that empowerment's a key core value. And accountability is, do what you say you're going to do. If you can't, get your hand up, ask for help. Don't bury your head in the sand and avoid the situation. But it's okay. We're always going to, people will overreach. We'll try to accomplish certain things and we'll miss. And be open to learning if we're making mistakes. We hope we don't keep making the same mistake over and over again, but we're going to make mistakes. And, we have to support each other. Those are my core values. And I think, it's really important to me anyway, as a quality of life. It's, that's why we're here. It's our life journey. Let's make it a great journey.
Okay, sounds good. I did want to open it up to questions. Does anybody have any ones that they want to hop up? Okay, sure. And you can introduce yourself as well. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Shreya. I'm a second year majoring in systems biology, music and humanity and technology. I'm just wondering what you see like the 5-year outlook for the spaces with the increase in like AI and kind of like taking over the more like analytics side. How do you see this field progressing, and like what kind of roles would emerge from that?
From the analytics, I was in this one meeting where the individual said, there's 2 types of engineers that there's the ones that are using AI in our company, and then the ones that are gone. So it's like, okay, we use it. All of us have seats on GPT and all that in our whole company. That we had that as soon as it came out. As soon as it became visible, we knew about it. It's really hard right now to forecast what's going to happen with some of the tech jobs, because the opportunity to continue to build tech is compounding so fast that, we're hiring right now. We're trying to fill roles in data science and a number of other areas. Now we're also focused on the business development, the sales side, because our products now coming into the market. But as it relates to what it's going to do on workforce, was it around just analytics of the area of the job, or was it a general workforce?
In general, like all of the different aspects of what's involved in your companies and kind of how those will progress.
Yeah, so I think we're going to continue to grow significantly in those categories. But what's really amazing is we're probably only going to need less than half of the resource it took to do Explorers to do Graici at a bigger scale. So that's what we're doing, and I think that's why part of our mission is to make sure people can generate value around their personal data in the newer economy, to say, okay, this is another way for me to contribute.
And then just
Good question, thank you.
Just to follow up on that question with one of my own really quick. In talking about like advancements of technology, other than what you're personally working on right now, is there anything that you're seeing, like opportunities out there that you're most excited about? Maybe as a VC or?
Yeah. Well, I'm super interested in what's going on here at CASE, in some of the labs in the Institute. So I had an earlier meeting around that and some of the research and from some of the brain science. So that's just, yeah, my daughter's year 2 case med school here, and so she, neurology appears when she's going to work Graici. Hopefully she can help the old man. So I'm really interested in that. I think I think that if we're to start moving away from even molecule levels to just digital, to just everything's just so data and digital driven that it's going to be just amazing. It's hard to really even consider what that's going to look like in an economics term when we try to do that, as we think about it, but it's really hard to understand what an economy looks like. It's that what we consider, things is now digital and more digital. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's hard to get your arms around it right now.
Okay. Genesis.
Hi, I'm Genesis Junior, fellow alum. I am hearing a lot about, being a serial entrepreneur and how you solve problems in telecom and then you transition that to the healthcare space. But I think that what's interesting is that when you're going into these big boardrooms and you're pitching, you're saying, hey, there's this big problem, there's this big gap that we can fill. You're bringing awareness to that problem, that there's a fear that the potential acquirer, the potential purchaser of those
Customer.
services could go and take that awareness that they now have and find another person who could service them. And you want to come in with leverage, you want to come in with IP, whatever it is, to kind of get them to commit. What has been your strategy to close deals and get potential acquirers to commit to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Actually, really good question. Thank you. One thing, we're big on IP. So the company that IBM acquired, my prior company, we had 3 patents that it issued, and that was right down the pike of the work we were doing. We have 1 already issued now for Graici, and that's now being filed globally. So we protect our intellectual property. We're not using it to be offensive, go on the attack, but we want to come in and let them know that we got our chops. We're not just ragtag group here. And so that's one element of it. I think understanding what we call building moats, which is when we're coming in, have we really identified some areas that are really challenging, a lot of friction for whoever you're pitching the idea to cross that moat. And then, so that's just a process we do. And we look at where they are and their position to shift into that space and how long it would take them to get there. And if, do we have a 2.5, 3-year lead, enough time to where they're really going to need us, and then we're essentially adopted and embedded and run it at full scale. And generally, in some of the environments, not all, but in healthcare frequently, it's a domino effect. And when you get to a certain level of adoption, maybe it's a tipping point effect as well, where they say, okay, we got to get in line because we're going to fall behind if we don't start to leverage it. So we look at it in those dimensions: intellectual property for protection, and then understanding, the organization you're talking to, their ability to cross the moat that you already established. That's a great question.
Thank you so much. We'll go right here.
Yeah, I think throughout
Introduce yourself, please.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm Neosha. I'm a sophomore studying chemical engineering and getting a business management minor. Kind of right now, I think in my undergraduate experience, I'm trying to learn how to leverage networking, which is something you were definitely kind of talking about a lot. So what is your advice on how to expand your network and grow it at kind of, like you were talking about, a rapid rate to gain exposure to your idea, as well as when do you know what, also earlier in your career, and when do you know who the right mentor is for every state of your life, I guess?
So first question, networking. It's a lot about activity. Like I saw the North Coast Angel Fund, and I was like, wow, I was in that 4.5-year hiatus, but I was getting antsy. I was like, okay. And a lot of the last 2 years was because I was watching a lot of trains pass going, those are not things I want to do. And so I was already looking for something, but it was 2-year process really to figure out Explorers. And so I joined the North Coast Angel Fund, put some money in there, and then I'm sending the room where all these pitches are coming in, right? And they're like, great, and that wasn't that I was going to take their ideas or anything, but I would want to invest, and then I would network from that, and I talk to other people, and I'd say, well, can we do these kinds of things and help in these areas? So that's like, look for networking opportunities, going to the events, going to like, if Jumpstart has an open event, go, right? If North Coast Angel does, go, and then definitely want to wire in with them. I was at Jumpstart's open house yesterday, and they're an investor in Graici as well. But look for those networking events, and then mentors. Did that answer your first question?
Yeah, also kind of in relation to the networking aspect of it, how do you maintain connections when also having like such a wide, like so many different, I guess like so many different routes of networking? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. See, I don't have a good answer for that other than they're kind of natural or organic. It's like, you either connect, and so a lot of connections usually you make don't go anywhere, right? You just determine then through the vetting process, either individuals like, yeah, it's great connection, respectful of that, but you're like, nothing more to cover here. Others will emerge into real opportunities. And it's almost an organic process. Yeah. No design to it. And then mentor, you'll know when you meet them.
So it sounds like Graici. Oh,
let me finish on the mentor. If you, I just had another thought about it. If you see behaviors in them that you want to model, that's your mentor. Yeah. So I should have put a finer point on that. Thank you.
So it sounds like Graici is mainly being distributed through various like avenues, like and could you speak to your decision to do that versus a direct-to-consumer model, and whether or not Graici is ever going to be direct-to-consumer?
That's a great question. We have to deal with that we have 2 different law firms, obviously, not obviously, but that's how complex it is, and probably adding a third because of regulations and things like that. So it's really about speed to market and scale for us as well. And then also it's that economic energy that if you don't build that engine that says, I'm going to add a lot of value to the plans and to the providers, you're not going to get access to the folks to try to put up billboards and pastor buses and stuff to go B2C. That's a really, really hard route. And the fact of the matter is, then you don't really have the opportunity to improve the other systems that are supporting those people. So it's a win-win-win, right? It's like there's so many opportunities there for the individual to win and the systems that are trying to support them to win. But that's why we make the choice it's really kind of channelizing. We're going through distribution channels that way.
And so is Graici is like the vision for it to eventually be direct to consumer, or is that just?
We don't know.
Okay.
We're open to it. We really are definitely open to it. It could happen, but we'd have to get to a certain critical tipping point and say, okay, because there's a lot of other things we're dreaming about that is beyond what Graici would do from an economic standpoint. But I'm not going to cover any of that right now. It's at 50,000 feet, but we've got other things in our idea think tank of what we would go with to improve, human condition.
Hi, my name is Tedros. I'm majoring in finance and business management. I had a quick question. I read something the other day where it said to think of startup ideas is to not think of startup ideas, but to think of issues that you have like within your own personal life today. You kind of went into that with Explorer, but I'm just interested with someone with your success. Would you back that statement, or is there anything else you would consider?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good philosophy, really. My whole journey has been around seeing issues and problems and things like that versus saying I just want to go invent something, sitting at my desk, instead, paying attention to what's happening in the world and then looking for those opportunities to serve and to really bring some solutions. I just think that, everything that when you think about the evolution of, the last even 300-400 years, which is blindingly unbelievable what's happened in that little window of time, right? At the crux, we're trying to improve our environment, more comfortable, longer lives, healthier lives, all those things. It's at the core in those things. Now, I know it doesn't seem like everybody's trying to do that. But I think overall humanity's trying to do that. And, the innovators that are in the room and the entrepreneurs that are, I think, thinking through that lens more and more are coming forward that are about, the win-win situation where it's doing great while doing great and, investing in people and solutions for people. I'm hopeful that that's really, we're going to see more and more of that emerge. And, I think human behaviors, generally, we don't make major changes in how we're doing unless we're jarred, right? And so hopefully the jar is, not the jarring isn't so critical that it's, too challenging to recover from. But I do think we can have some jarring experiences. It could really emerge some really great new leaders that will come in and say, okay, how do we want to invent some things to solve these problems that we're seeing in front of each other? I think that's a good philosophy.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name is Amos. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering. I'm just trying to, understand Graici a little bit better. Would you characterize it as kind of like a personal AI agent that collects and consolidates personal data into one place so that consumers can then monetize it themselves? Is that like a accurate description of it?
Yeah, I think, no, that's a piece of what I'm sharing. So I think what you brought back is accurate as an element. Graici is actually at the core is a personal AI assistant for the individual. And the data is to really serve that person. So Graici is really then the assistant saying, okay, now that we have your wallet put together, what are the needs? And we actually assemble the wallet based on needs as well. So we're saying, well, if you needed these kinds of resources, let's make sure we have this data in your wallet. And then obviously we can reuse it over and over again. Graici does with the agentic technology to get the resources you need. So it's really multifactorial in that, the wallet is a key component of it, but it also drives a ton of value when it gets agentified, and then you're starting to really take action for the person, which also adds value to the other big stakeholders like a healthcare system or a health plan, because their labor forces are getting hit. They're in the red. Most of them are in the red, losing money. And so now they're empowering the person to be part of the workforce, right? So now they can take on, by managing themselves and being able to leverage and navigate the system, the resources that have been taken out of those other infrastructures, they can still sustain the process of getting access to the things that they need. So you can see the intertwined, between what's happening at the more macro level and then what's happening at the micro level.
So would like an example of providing that value be like you mentioned, like applying for Medicaid earlier, where your agent has all your stuff and it can breeze through that application really quickly, so you don't have to have someone guiding you through it. That's kind of like one of those examples?
That's right. Examples.
Gotcha. And then just, I guess, one little quick add-on. I think, like, as far as like the personal data monetization aspect goes, or like providing value to the consumer, like I was curious, like, because you mentioned some sort of like health data interchange earlier. Is that a component of it as well, like generating revenue for the person?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. And you got to watch out though. I mean, it's a sticky wicket. You got to navigate what's called inducement, the OIG, which minimizes compensation for that, and any kickback status, AKS. So that's why we have another law firm that specializes in all those things, so you can navigate past that, so you don't trip on those things. And then if you breach those regulations, you can have a real problem. But our goal is to help monetize the person's data for them in a way that doesn't trip those regulations. So right on. Great question.
All right, I think we're at
We have 3 minutes. Maybe we can get
one more 3 minutes worth of
One more
questions.
short
Dave,
question.
go for it.
I have a very specific question. You talked about how one of your earlier entrepreneurial endeavors, you had given the Cleveland Clinic equity simply for like attaching your name to them. How did you find a way to evaluate how much equity was fair game for that, right? You can't use a basic business evaluation approach with company's valuation divided by whatever the shares are. How do you approach that?
I'll tell you, it's a really sophisticated model that we worked on for 30 seconds when we started at board. We just went, let's throw this number out and see where we land. And we haggled and then we were done. But it was the only thing we were really absolutely adamant about is that we would not give controlling interest to anyone because, you know, that's just not good. I mean, you can have your company get extinguished by those that don't have any idea what you're doing. And so we were just adamant that we wouldn't give up anything close to majority share. Yeah.
Okay, we have no timeline, but a lot of the people that engage with ThinkBox are or like one day hope to be like working on their own startups. So is there anything that you, like any advice that you would give to any of the people that are tinkering at their startups right now or hope to be one day? Just any words of advice?
Well, I mean, I think it really is, you know, a major thing is going to be tenacity. It's just, and I'm sure you've heard it, but it really is. It's, perspiration over, you know, inspiration it's really critical because it's really hard. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to be just, you know, relentless at getting to something that really adds value, and that's tenacity. And it's got to be a key gene of an entrepreneur that you just don't give up easy.
Okay.
Right. Very good. Well, Apeksha, thank you for moderating. It was good. You kept it. Yes. If you didn't check in student types and you can, that'd be awesome. Steve, thank you. This is great. So awesome. I didn't know your daughter was here. That's so good.
Yeah.
Another connection to case.